I did not go looking for the dead, but they found me by dialing my number at 12:03 a.m. when the neighborhood was a lake of dark windows and the wind moved like cold cloth along the siding. The screen lit with a name that should have been impossible to see. The name I had written twice on a hospital form and once on a stone I could not afford. I watched it ring until my own face stared back at me in the black glass, waiting as if I were receiving a call from inside my reflection. I answered because silence can be more frightening than sound. There was a hiss at first, not the clean hiss of white noise, but a layered sound like gravel churned in syrup, like an ocean made of broken televisions. Then a voice pressed itself through the static. It did not say hello. It said my childhood name, the one only my grandmother used when she brushed the hair from my eyes after a nightmare. She had been in the ground a decade. Still, she whispered my name as if her mouth were only inches away. She read me a set of numbers. I did not recognize them as coordinates until the voice stopped and the call ended by itself. The clock returned to 12:03. The battery level did not drop. I stood at the kitchen sink with the phone in both hands like a trapped bird and copied the numbers onto an envelope that had once contained Bill. When I checked them on a map, a red pin appeared beside the old rail station on the edge of town, the broken brick one with the roof like a torn tongue, where people spray-painted promises they could not keep and teenagers learned how to disappoint each other. I slept by accident with the lights on and woke before the sun. Frost silvered the driveway like powder on a mirror. I dressed without thinking, the way the body obeys a nightmare even while the mind protests. The town was empty in that pocket of morning, all the dogs still dreaming. I walked to the tracks because the roads made too much sense. Iron froze the soles of my shoes. The rails hummed faintly under the weight of nothing, remembering trains the way scar tissue remembers knives. The station rose like the severed head of a building. Its windows had cataracts of soot, and weeds speared the concrete where tickets were once sold. I kept expecting to see someone with a camera, or a homeless camp, or at least a gull tearing at a paper bag, but the whole place was unoccupied in a way that felt rehearsed, as if emptiness had been arranged for me. A single door hung on a hinge and sighed when I touched it. The sigh echoed as if the building were hollow lungs. Inside, dust had softened every edge. An old departure board moldered on the wall. The letters were either missing or jammed into nonsense. The ticket counter was a mouth with no teeth. I was about to turn back when I saw the figure on the far side of the hall. It faced the opposite wall. It did not sway with the drafts. It did not shift weight from foot to foot. It was so still that my brain dismissed it 3 times as a coat on a stand. Then it turned its head toward me with the slowness of a clock. Where the eyes should have been, there was motion. Not eyes. Not even glass. Motion. Imagine the way a television looks when it means to show you a face and cannot when the signal is wrong and the image collapses into crawling ants of light. That storm filled the sockets. It made no light of its own, yet invented the idea of light within darkness. I felt it touch the surface of my eyes from across the hall. I took a step, then another, the way you step toward a cliff to confirm that the ground truly ends. The phone in my pocket rang and the figure raised its hand. The screen showed no number, only the old contact name that belonged to the hospital and the stone. I answered because the choice had been made for me. The static was thicker now, almost granular, and through it came my grandmother's whisper again, soft as a thread pulled through fabric. "Go down," she said. "Go down, and you will hear me better." The call ended without a goodbye. The figure lowered its hand and resumed the long patience of statues. There is a stairwell in the southwest corner where the wall looks swollen, as if the building grew a bruise and never healed. I found it by smelling colder air, the way you find a leak by taste. The stairs descended in a square, each flight nearly the same as the one above, the fluorescents long dead, the bulbs full of dust where moths once went to die. I used my phone's flashlight and watched the beam become fogged with particles as if I were moving underwater. A tiled corridor waited at the bottom, its tiles the green of institutional forgiveness. Every face in the posters had been scraped away, not random and not angry, more like a ritual. The paper was flensed down to the white. Only the eyes remained, but they were not printed eyes. They were holes cut through the paper and the tile behind it, little windows into the dark behind the wall. Air breathed there, a slow in and out, raising dust from cracks. I put my hand to one hole because the mind that should flee sometimes wants proof instead. Something dry and filamentous brushed my fingertip from the other side, with the logic of a cobweb made of hair. There were tracks once, back when the county bothered to sweep this place. You can still see the steel like buried bones where the floor gives way. I followed them into deeper dark, my light knitting a narrow tunnel inside the larger one. Water dripped in the distance with the discipline of a metronome. The sound made the tunnel into a throat. I should have turned around. I did not. The numbers on the envelope in my pocket felt warm against my thigh, as if ink could hold a fever. The first figure I met below was sitting exactly on the line where the train would have stopped. It had the same hollow sockets of moving storm, but it hid them in its palms as if ashamed of its eyes. Without looking up, it began to speak in my voice. Not an imitation, not a recording, my voice, full of its old cracks and the small cowardly hesitations I hear when I cannot sleep. It spoke sentences I had never said aloud, and some I had, each one pulled from an hour I'd tried to ignore. It reminded me of the night I let the dog out and pretended I had not heard it scratch. It reminded me of bills buried in a drawer until the red letters arrived. It reminded me of choosing not to answer when the hospital called the first time. I told it to stop. It did not. It spread its fingers and looked at me with the thunder of its sockets. Shapes moved in the static like fish trapped in ice. My name emerged and dissolved. Behind the figure, deeper down, more footsteps began to keep rhythm with mine. I backed away and found myself in a branch of tunnel I had not chosen. The ceiling sank lower here, and parts of it had fallen in heaps that looked like discarded bedding. When I touched one with my shoe, a pale moth crawled out, folded like a broken note, and kept crawling until it reached the edge of my light and vanished by refusing illumination. Corridors multiplied. Every right turn became 2 right turns. Doors appeared where I swore none had been, all painted the same authority green, all unlabeled. One opened into a long room lined with mirrors that were not mirrors. They returned to me that had taken different bargains. In one, I was strangled by a rope of coaxial cable. In another, my lips were sealed shut with wire that threaded in and out like a seam. My eyes begged, but my sewn mouth breathed, and I woke the echo with the sound. In a third, my hands were blackened up to the wrists, as if from reaching into a fire that did not burn anything but promises. My phone rang. I had not felt it in my pocket because the air elsewhere was full of that same buzzing. The screen showed a contact named You. I almost laughed at the banality, the crude theater. Then my grandmother spoke again, and laughter changed temperature. "Give back what you took," she whispered. "The static needs balance. Every voice we borrow leaves a debt. You have been listening your life without paying. Give back, and you may go upstairs again while your knees still work." I did not understand, or I pretended not to. I asked what to give. The call ended, but the phone continued to ring from the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor, like a hive impressed with 100 bells. The figures moved closer. They made no sound, other than the wrong light in their eyes. There was a ladder in the next chamber, bolted to a wall of brick the color of dried scabs. I gripped it because hands require tasks when terror is too complex. My palms slid and came away rusty. I told myself I was climbing into air. The hatch above was a circle of darker dark. I raised it with my shoulder and tumbled into a smaller room, square, low, with porcelain fixtures filmed in gray. It was some kind of service bathroom. The mirror above the sink did not hold my reflection until I turned the phone's light on it. When my face finally arrived, it looked older by a day.